Leaving Cert Higher Level 2017, Paper 1, Question 1. So, this question starts off with, write the function f of x equals 2x squared minus 7x minus 10 in the form a by x plus h to be squared plus k, where a, h, and k are elements of the rational numbers. So, a, h, and k are all going to be fractions here. So in other words, they want us to complete the square. If they want it in this form here, they're asking us to complete the square of it. So now if there's anything in front of the x squared, which there is here, you want to take that out first. So factor it out. So we're going to say here that f of x is equal to, so if I take 2 out of each of those terms, I'm going to be left with x squared. Take it out, this minus 7, then you're going to get minus 7 over 2. And take it out the minus 10, you're left with minus 5. Now, the next thing we're going to do here, we're going to be adding and subtracting a constant here. We're going to be putting them in here. And that constant is going to be what you get when you halve the coefficient of x and then square it. So if I halve the coefficient of x, I get, well, if you halve minus 7 over 2, you're going to get minus 7 over 4. If you then square that, so you multiply it by itself, well, it's going to be positive, because if you square minus, it's going to get a positive. It's going to be 49 over 16. So that is what we're going to be adding and subtracting to this. So 2 times x squared minus 7 over 2 times x. So yeah, we're going to be adding that, adding it and subtracting it immediately, because if you don't subtract it, you've changed the question. So that's it there, and then we've still got that minus 5 there at the end, so we need to put that in again. Now, so the first 3 terms of this thing are going to be a perfect square. So what that perfect square is going to be is this. It's going to be, so put your 2 in first, so it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be a perfect square like this. Now, because it's x squared, the x is going to go here, and the number that goes here is going to be whatever you got when you halve the coefficient of x. Now what we got when we halved the coefficient of x was this minus 7 over 4. So we want to put that in. And that's going to go in here. So that then deals with the first 3 terms of this. If I squared that out there, I would get x squared minus 7 over 2x plus 49 over 16. But I've still got these 2 here terms at the end. Now when you put those into the calculator, you're going to get minus 129 over 16. And then to write it in the form that they want, they don't have any kind of square brackets here, so you just want to you multiply the 2 in again. So we're going to have this. It's going to be 2 times x minus 7 over 4 to be squared. And then when you double this, you're going to get minus 129 over 8. And that's it written in the form they want. So for that part A, there's a few things to remember. You have to remember to halve the coefficient of x and then square it, and then add it and subtract it. And then this part here, the perfect square, it's going to be x, and this number is found from whatever you got when you halve the coefficient of x, not after you squared it. But there is another way of doing that question, which I'll just do before we leave part A. So it's just an alternative way of doing it. So what you could do here, we want to write this in that form. So so I want to write 2x squared minus 7x minus 10 in the form a by x plus h to be squared plus k. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to multiply all this out here. Now when you square x plus h, you're going to get, square the first, multiply these together and double it, so you're going to get 2hx, and then square the last, so square h, you're going to get h squared. And I've still got a plus k there at the end. So then, continuing to multiply this out, I'm going to have ax squared plus 2ahx plus ah squared plus k. So it's still all equal to this over here again, so 2x squared minus 7x minus 10. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to equate coefficients. So so whatever's in front of the x squared on this side, which is 2, has to equal whatever's in front of x squared on this side, which is 8. So those two things are going to be the same. Whatever's in front of the x here, which is minus 7, has to equal whatever's in front of x on this side, which is 2ah. And then the constants both sides have to be the same. So this constant here, minus 10, has to equal then this constant over here, which is ah squared plus k. So really then I have 3 equations. I know here that a is going to equal 2. Equating the blues there, I know that 2ah is equal to minus 7. And I know that, equating the greens there, ah squared plus k is equal to minus 10. So, well, I know what a is now, straight away. A is 2. If a is 2, I'm going to put that in here. So 2 by 2 would be 4. So 4h is equal to minus 7. And that's going to mean that, well, I'll just do it up here. It's going to mean then that, well, h is going to be minus 7 over 4. So there's h found. And then equating the greens, so we're looking at this equation here. Again, we know what a is now, and we know what h is, so we can put that information here. So, so then 2 by minus 7 over 4 to be squared plus this k here has to equal minus 10. So 2 by minus 7 over 4 is, well, minus 7 over 4 squared is 49 over 16 plus k is equal to minus 10. So because I'm running out of room here, I'm just going to write down what k is here. 2 by that is 49 over 8. When you bring it over here and subtract it, you're going to have minus 10 minus 49 over 8, which will give you minus 129 over 8. So there's your value of k. And then, to answer the question then, you put those figures in here. So then, in completed square form, 2x squared minus 7x minus 10 is going to end up being 2 by x minus, so my h is minus 7 over 4, so it's an x minus 7 over 4 to be squared, and then plus the k, which was this, so minus 129 over 8, and that is that quadratic function in completed square form, and that's what we got earlier on. So there are 2 different ways of doing the same question. Okay, so part B then, it says, hence write down the minimum point of f. So, well, if you have a function in completed square form like this form here, the minimum or the maximum point of it will be minus hk. So let's actually write that in, even though you wouldn't really have to write it in the exam. It just, all it's asking for here is the minimum point itself. So it's gonna, but I'll just write this in anyway. So the minimum or the maximum point of a function in this form here, y is equal to a by x plus h to be squared plus k. The minimum point of that is always going to be minus hk. Now we have it in completed square form. Now my h here in this case is minus 7 over 4. You can look up here. My h is minus 7 over 4. So minus h then will be plus 7 over 4. So the minimum point of this function is this, 7 over 4. And my k in this case is this number here, the minus 129 over 8. So that is the minimum point of f. Okay, and then moving on to part C, then it says, part C, part 1 says, explain why f must have 2 real roots. So I was looking for an explanation here. So now we're going to sort of use the fact that we know this is the minimum point. The first thing to say about this is that this is a quadratic function, and the coefficient of x squared is positive, which means it's going to be a u-shape. A quadratic function is either like this or like this. It's like this if it's a plus something x squared, and it's like this if it's a minus something x squared. So it's going to be a u-shape in this case. So so yeah, we'll just say that here. So okay, so since a equals 2 is positive, the curve we know is going to be u-shaped, with its arms tending to infinity. So you know, the arms, if you imagine a U, the arms going up, the arms of the U just going up to infinity. Now, if we look at the y coordinate here of the minimum point, that's a negative y value. So we'll make that point as well. So we're going to say here that the y coordinate of the minimum point is negative. So what that's going to mean, well, I'll just type it in first. So at 2 different points, the curve will have to cross the x-axis, giving 2 real roots. So yeah, because so if we plot this, I'll just draw a very rough diagram of what it might look like. So the minimum point is 7/4 minus 129/8. So let's say that point is somewhere there. It's going to have a positive x and a negative y. So let's just put it there. So we know it's a u-shape, so it's going to have come down like this, go through that minimum point, and come back up. So the fact that the minimum point has a negative y coordinate means it's below the x-axis. Now these arms, they go off to plus infinity. There's no way of them avoiding the x-axis, which means that there are going to be 2 real roots. Okay, so yeah, that's it explained. And then it's actually looking for the roots here. It says write the roots of f of x equals 0 in the form p plus or minus root q, where p and q are again rational numbers. So f of x is the original function. You know, you could just let this equal 0 and then solve it using the minus b formula. But I'll do it a slightly different way here. I'm going to use my completed square form. So instead of letting that equal 0, I'm going to let this equal 0. So yeah. So in complete square form, it was 2 by x minus 7/4 to be squared, minus then 129/8. So we're going to let that equal to 0. I'm going to solve it now for x. We're going to solve it for the roots. So first thing to do is bring this term over. So then you're left with 2 by x minus 7/4 to be squared is equal to plus 129/8. You then want to divide both sides by 2. So x minus 7/4 to be squared is equal to 129/16. Now we're going to get the square root of both sides here. So when we get the square root of that, we're left with x minus 7/4. And get the square root of the right hand side here. So well, it's going to be it's not going to be a whole number, so we're going to say plus or minus. Make sure you put the plus or minus in. If you don't, you're only going to get 1 root here, not 2. So it's going to be the square root of 129/16. And then all we have to do then is bring this minus 7 before over. So then, to answer the question, the two roots are 7 over 4 plus or minus the square root of 129 over 60. And that is question 1 completed.